What's going on, guys, and welcome to another top 10 video. Today I'm going to be counting down my 10 favourite 12th Doctor stories. These are going to be episodes from series 8, 9 and 10, and Christmas specials will not be counted in this at all. I'm going to have a separate video for Christmas specials just before the new Christmas special comes out, so this is just going to be from the series episodes themselves. I first of all want to say that I'm not going to be having video clips in this video because I've had issues with my videos getting blocked, so from now on these top 10 and ranking videos are just going to have pictures in them. So I know it doesn't look quite as good, but it's what I kind of got to do because otherwise it's going to be a real pain and I keep getting blocked. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Number 10. Face the Raven. Now, this is one of the last episodes of Series 9, and it is basically where Clara dies. I loved this episode. I thought it was really well done. I think Clara really had a great death in this episode, throughout the whole of Series 9, and also kind of a lot of Series 8 as well. We saw that Clara was kind of becoming the Doctor. She was really, She wasn't listening to what the Doctor was saying. She was pushing things too far. She was kind of being too brave in a way and becoming like the Doctor, which really wasn't a good thing. And I think this episode, it showed how she died was great. She went too far, and she died. Sadly, she does come back in Hellbent. However, we'll forget that ever happened. Number 9. Knock Knock. Now, this is a Series 10 episode where Bill and a bunch of her friends go to rent a house from the landlord. It turns out that this landlord he has this house, and the house is basically eating people, kind of. There's like these weird lice, cockroachy type things that basically latch onto people and suck them into the wood, and basically turn them into living wood, I suppose. The landlord's mother, who ends up being his mother, it has turned into this wooden monster thing, and it's a whole story. We find out about his mom at the end. It's a pretty decent story. I quite like it. It didn't get received that well by a few people, however I quite enjoyed it. Number 8. Theyre Nice. This is another Series 10 episode where the Doctor and Bill go to way back in London, and under the River Thames it's just all covered in ice, and there's these kind of fish monster things under the ice, and I think they're just like taking people and dragging them under the ice, and I guess freezing them, because I mean it's freezing cold water, of course. It's a pretty cool story. We don't actually really get to see the monster that much. It ends up in the end that there's actually, we see kind of these little fish throughout the whole story. We kind of just see them as lights under the water. At the end though, we see the big fish, kind of the mama fish. And it's a pretty good story. It's not amazing, however I still think it was pretty decent. Number 7. Deep Breath. Now, Deep Breath is the first ever story for Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor in Series 8, and it's a pretty decent start. Now, we start off with the Doctor and Clara. They've basically, the TARDIS has, well, it's not really crashed, but the Doctor's had some issues with the TARDIS after just regenerating. They end up somehow transporting a dinosaur into London. And then we have these clockwork people who are basically a evolutioned, kind of a newer version of the clockwork people that we see in David Tennant's era, and they're basically doing what the other clockwork people did and trying to rebuild their ship with human parts. Basically, it's a pretty good story. The villain isn't that crazy in this one, however, it's more of an introduction to Peter Capaldi's Doctor. Number 6. Flatline. This is another Series 8 episode, and I thought this one was pretty damn good. Basically, the TARDIS ends up shrinking, and the Doctor has no idea what's going on, so he sends Clara out into the world to try and investigate. The Doctor ends up getting trapped in the TARDIS with it just shrinking to really small. And yeah, basically Clara has to be the Doctor, and this is the start of Clara kind of becoming too much like the Doctor. This is really where it all began. And I think it was pretty cool. The villains are a bit weird. The Doctor ends up calling them the Boneless. They're basically drawings, kind of graffiti that really comes to life. And I think it's a pretty cool story. Altogether, it's interesting. We also get to see the introduction of Riggsy in this episode. Number 5. Oxygen. Now, this is another Series 10 episode, and I thought this one was really good. Basically, people have to pay for oxygen. They're up in space, and they have to pay to get oxygen from these suits. If they run out of oxygen, well, they die, and they basically turn into these kind of zombie-like creatures in the suits. There are a few of them wandering around. The Doctor, Bill, and Nardole. This is really the first time we get to see Nardole properly in a story. They have to get away from these kind of zombie-like creatures. I thought it was pretty well done. Bill ends up having a pretty close call, and the Doctor goes blind in this story. Although I wasn't so keen on the Doctor going blind, I think it dragged on for a bit too long. It was a nice thing to happen in this story, and altogether I think Oxygen was one of the standout episodes from Series 10. Number 4. Heaven Sent. Yeah, you probably expected this one to be a little bit higher. However, personally for me, I mean, obviously with it being a number 4, I do love Heaven Sent. The first time I watched it, I didn't really like it at all. I found it too repetitive. I found it pretty boring. However, when I watched it the second time and when I saw people commenting about it online, I really appreciated this episode a lot more. And I realized that it was actually a pretty interesting story. This is just after Clara dies, and the Doctor ends up kind of being in his confession dial, and it's a really scary story with that scary monster, which is basically the Doctor's biggest fear. It is a little bit repetitive at times, and it's one of the reasons why it is a little bit further down this list. I do find it a bit repetitive, and I'm not a big fan of the whole thing with Clara in the TARDIS talking to him. I don't know what it is, I just don't really like that, but really, Peter Capaldi absolutely smashes out this episode, and it's really good. Number 3. Mummy on the Orient Express. This is a Series 8 episode, which I believe was this one after Flatline? I think it was, right? It was either after Flatline or before Flatline, I can't remember, but it was a really good episode. Basically, this is the last, well, this was the kind of first time that Clara was like, I think it's the first time that Clara was like, I want to leave, I don't want to do this travelling anymore. She ends up coming back, but basically the Doctor's like, alright, this can be our last trip. And some stuff ends up going down, they find out about this mummy on the Orient Express, but the Doctor doesn't really want to tell Clara about it. He wants to just do it himself, because, you know, this is supposed to be her last trip. He doesn't want to make it a dangerous, crazy one for her. And some stuff goes down. I think the supporting cast in this one is really good, and yeah, altogether, this episode is just a really fun one. Number 2. World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls. Now, this one would have been in number 1 if it wasn't really for the Doctor Falls. Now, World Enough and Time I think is an absolutely amazing episode. It's definitely my favourite. Like, altogether, World Enough and Time is my favourite 12th Doctor story. However, I think the Doctor Falls brings it down a little bit. There are some great moments in the Doctor Falls, however I feel like it did drag on a bit. It was a little bit boring at times. I didn't like the end, how Bill came back. I think Bill should have just... I honestly think she could have just died. I mean, maybe it's a bit dark for Doctor Who, however we've had characters die in the past, and, you know, I don't think she needed to come back. We don't need Bill back again. It was a perfect end for her, but obviously Stephen Moffat loves to bring characters back. However, you know, just because of World Enough and Time, this gets number 2. Number 1. Under the Lake and Before the Flood. Now, this is a Series 9 episode which I actually think is really underrated. Basically, the Doctor and Clara find this spaceship, and, well, it's kind of a spaceship thing, and they find out that there's these ghostly figures around this spaceship, and they're basically trying to kill people. However, they can't kill people unless, you know, they have to have a weapon. They can't do anything. If they don't have a weapon, they can't do anything. And some stuff goes down. I think it's just really good. I think the first part's better than the second part. I know the second part is where the Doctor finds the big creature thing, which, it doesn't show up for very long, so it's not that significant, but altogether, I think this two-parter is very underrated, and I really do enjoy it. Alright, well there we have it for this video. That was my picks for my top 10 favourite 12th Doctor stories. What are your favourite 12th Doctor stories? Is this list pretty close to your list? Do you have some episodes that I didn't mention here that are on your list? What do you think? I'd love to know down in the comments below. Remember that this is my opinion. I have a lot of people in videos like this, you know, really hating on me because of my episode selections, but this is my opinion. You've got to remember that, and I would love to hear your opinions down in the bottom in the comments below. Maybe you really liked Hellbent, and you know, as much as I absolutely despise Hellbent, I will respect your opinion if that is the case for you. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.